Georgia quarterback Carson Beck has the opportunity to do something really big, and that is flip the script from what's been happening this season. He headed into this season as pretty much the consensus number one quarterback for the 2025 NFL Draft. He was a Heisman frontrunner entering the season. There were a lot of the betting odds said, hey, this might be the guy. He was up there with Ewers and Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Milroe and guys like that. Beck was at the top of the list. Tough stretch of football. Throws a ton of picks. He's got, I think, an SEC high, 14 turnovers roughly. I've got a clip I want to play for you. I've got some quotes from draft experts because Carson Beck has an opportunity to flip the script now after, look, Ole Miss, he played better in that game. I know he had the interception. It was a tip ball towards the end of the game. I know that the offense couldn't do anything, but that Ole Miss loss wasn't on Carson Beck. And then, huge game against Tennessee. Season's on the line for Georgia. What does he do? He throws for close to 400 yards and no interceptions with a couple touchdowns. Ran for a touchdown. Made some big plays on the ground. Look, his stretch of play this year had scouts questioning their thought process. And in turn, it's allowed Shedeur. Now, their good play has done this as well. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward have been kind of separating themselves as the top quarterback prospects in this upcoming draft as Beck kind of slides down boards. People calling him a middle round guy. Experts saying, look, he's got a huge turnover problem. He's pressing. And he's got to get some of this stuff out of it. I mean, the script is flipping on Carson Beck. And there's a lot more to go for Georgia for him to do that. And as we said, there's a lot of opportunity, right? Georgia can make a playoff run. There's a whole draft process that's going to be coming up. Carson Beck can completely flip the script. We're going to talk a lot about Georgia this week, but I'm going to talk about Carson Beck a little bit right here. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. Listen to this clip. This is Bruce Feldman. This is on Fox pregame show on Saturday, so none of the games have gone on. Hear about how they're talking about Carson Beck, and then let's talk about what he did on Saturday. Excuse me.
Football Insider sponsored by
Finally.
You are in good hands with our Bruce Feldman. Huge SEC matchup later today. Tennessee at Georgia. All eyes on Bulldogs quarterback Carson Beck. Started this year, Bruce, as a Heisman favorite, but he has an SEC high 14 turnovers this season.
Rob, one of the biggest surprises of the entire season has been the struggles of Carson Beck. And as you mentioned, he's had all sorts of turnover issues. A guy who a lot of NFL scouts were talking about as a first-round projected, now they're talking about him as a possible middle-round guy. So talking to scouts this week as well as SEC coaches, I asked them, like, what has happened to him? And they said what has been exposed is a lack of mobility, and that, combined with a lack of poise in the pocket, has been very, very concerning. On top of that,
lack of poise.
There is no Brock Bowers, there's no Ladd McConkey. You see a guy who's really, really pressing. Now, he will get a chance to reset the narrative today because he's going to be facing arguably the most talented and dominant defense in the SEC when the Tennessee Vols come to town.
And you heard what he said, that he has the chance to flip the narrative, right? And now the narrative is flipping because what did he do? He balled out against Tennessee. So now there's a different outlook on Beck. So this kind of shows you the volatility of this industry, right? I mean, think about it this way too. A week ago, we're talking about Georgia's season being on the line. Does this team have it? Is this offense good enough to put on points on a good defense? Is playing on the road a big issue, right? There were a lot of things. And then now it's, hey, Georgia's probably punched its ticket into the college football playoff not the national championship, but the college football playoff. They punched their ticket to get in as long as they take care of business, beat UMass and Georgia Tech. So it kind of shows you the volatility of this industry, just being transparent with you guys. And that's how it goes, right? Because people have takes every single week and the things change as games are played. Well, with Beck, started out high, right? With the Clemson game, the Tennessee Tech game, it's easy. And then the Kentucky game is when it started. And a bad stretch of play went on. Well, there's more to the story, right? Georgia's offense has not been as good. And then you get to see it in a game against a really good defense. It has the advantage of the backing of the home crowd this time as compared to when it was at Ole Miss and when it was at Alabama in those games that it struggled and ultimately lost. You saw the difference this week. And not only did you see Carson Beck not press, which was a huge issue over the course of the season, you saw him make the right decision pretty much every single time, right? I'll take the check down here, I'll tuck it and run with it here, and they even sprinkled in some design runs. The one where he broke the tackle, the one where he lowered the shoulder, that was a QB draw, right? Empty set, QB draw. He showed that he had enough athleticism for the coaches to trust him to do that in game. Obviously, they trusted him to do that in practice or know that he just has the wheels to do that. Todd McShay, he works for the Ringer now. He's a draft expert, right? If there can be a draft expert, he's definitely got that title. And this game has now changed the way they're talking. He had Pete Thamel on earlier, right? Thamel and McShay. Thamel, ESPN Insider, College Football Insider. McShay, Draft Insider. They had a discussion a week or so ago, and they're talking about, hey, look, the scouts and the GMs, their mind has changed about Carson Beck. He's gone from being seen as this first-round pick, as a potential first overall pick, to being like, okay, well, he's probably not a day one, and maybe you have to think about him being a day two. The conversation completely changed, and honestly, rightfully so. A bad stretch of play, it's not like he just had two or three bad games. It was about a 5 or 6 game stretch where Carson was really struggling, and then you have a little bit of improvement, even though they lost in Ole Miss, and then you've got the game against Tennessee where it's big time and it's clutch and your back's against the wall. Let me just read to you. I was listening to earlier the conversation about Carson Beck. Let me read to you what Todd McShay had to say. First, about discussing, hey, look, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are starting to separate themselves as the top guys, but Carson Beck can make the conversation interesting, and that Quinn Ewers isn't doing much to make things interesting. This is what he said. For the vast majority of the season, I was not seeing the Carson Beck that I was accustomed to seeing. I wasn't seeing the Carson Beck that I expected to see in terms of growth. Now that I am seeing that guy, Carson Beck is a better NFL prospect than Quinn Ewers, right? Okay, we'll talk about that for a second. Ewers, in my opinion, a little bit more arm talent. I think he does a couple of things better than Carson Beck, but Carson Beck does a lot of little things, right? He does the pre-snap stuff. You saw the way that they handled people jumping off sides. Those are the kinds of things that pro quarterbacks do really well. You saw a lot of NFL stuff out of Carson Beck on Saturday night against Tennessee, stuff that these scouts think Ewers is lacking in, right? These guys compared him to a golf player that's better on the driving range than you see him throw, but then you see in the games there's just a few things that are lacking. Well, Carson Beck has always kind of been a better prospect than Quinn Ewers in terms of the NFL, but games like this are what separates him. Here's the other thing that McShay said that I thought was really interesting. Carson Beck, from an NFL perspective, is making NFL throws. The mobility he brings, the size he has, this is a damn good time for him to turn it on. Let's put it that way. We've got a lot of time to unpack it, but if he keeps playing like this and Georgia goes on a run, he's going to make things really interesting. Dean and I were having a conversation off camera about this, and I was like, look, dude, Carson's killing his draft stock right now. This was a few weeks ago. This was in the heat of him throwing the interceptions, in the heat of him just struggling, right, and pressing. And we said, hey, look, he's killing his draft stock. If he keeps playing like this, he's not going to be a first-round pick. Dean said, don't put it out of the NFL to get anybody as a first-round pick, referencing some guys in the past that have been bad selections. And look, the truth of the matter is he's had a big game to turn it around. He's got more big games coming in the future, most likely. And if Georgia, and specifically him, play well in that, then the opinion's going to change again because it showed he overcame those struggles and improved, and he'll be right back into the first-round mix. I don't know about first overall pick mix. I think that he has to play exceptionally well and have a really good process to get back there, because at the end of the day, here's been my opinion. Well, he could play really good the rest of the way and really ball out, and I think he should be in the conversation for a high draft pick at that point. The tape that we saw will also be there, and it will turn some people off. And that's just kind of the way these things go. And everybody has a different draft opinion, and my phone starts to make noise. Got that problem fixed. Trying to bring you guys extra content, and then the phone starts to take over. Brand new phone, too. But look, guys, Carson Beck, I didn't know, 25 for 40 was not telling the whole story. Just like the stats in all these games haven't been telling the whole story with the drops and sometimes there's throwaways and things like that. The script is flipping. It has an opportunity to keep flipping. I think that Carson Beck, if he keeps playing really well, he'll get right back into the first round conversation. First overall pick, I don't know, but first round is definitely still on the table for him after a good performance. Thanks for watching.